Hey everybody, I've got an emergency video to tell you about what went down today at committee and also the details of what we know right now about part 3. Just the third shoe to drop on this monster that is the diabolical liberal gun ban agenda that's been going on for the last few years. It's wild. So we don't know everything yet, but I'll tell you what we do know. So at committee during Bill C21 committee. So Bill C21 is the liberal gun bill that's moving its way through Parliament and is getting very close to the end of the process before it goes to the Senate. So basically, as the bill makes its way through the parliamentary process in the House, you have these hearings. If you remember, I was part of that. And of course, I answered a lot of great questions and had some great dialogue. But of course, with the liberal MPs, it was just a mudslinging fest. It was just a joke. It was like having to argue with a couple of children. And, you know, it was such a waste of taxpayer money and such a waste of an important opportunity for Canadians to understand a little bit more about this topic. But hey, that's how they roll. You know, I don't expect anything more from them. So, and luckily I was ready for them if you saw that video. But nonetheless, as when we get out of that part of the process where all the experts are consulted and whatnot, it goes to amendments. So basically, theoretically, how it's supposed to work is the MPs learn from all the experts, and that's, well, some of them do, I guess. They learn from all the experts, and they also have external advisors, and they come up with amendments to make the bill work better or take some of the negative stuff out or whatever. But it's meant for minor tweaks to the bill. It's not meant to introduce something that looks like a totally different piece of legislation. So the Liberals waited, and we'll talk about this in a second, but they waited with this huge change. And what that change is a list of an additional 400 firearms that they want to put in legislation, along with all the other old prohibited ones in legislation to ban. And also a little piece of verbiage that says the following. Basically, any rifle or shotgun that's centerfire, semi-automatic, and has a detachable magazine will now be prohibited in Canada. Okay, centerfire, semi-auto, rifle or shotgun with a detachable magazine. There's a little bit of nuance there, but that's like 98% of what that is. Okay, so use your imagination for a second to figure out what's going to be prohibited in Canada once this makes its way into law, once it receives royal assent. Okay, I'll give you some ideas. I just kind of threw a couple together. Tavors, X95s, all the AR-180s and their variants, so Crusader arms, the WS-MCR, the WK-180, all those, all prohib, all the Canuck shotguns, the bullpup ones, all the rest of them that have removable magazines. Basically all the Kel-Tec products, maybe except for the pump-action shotguns that they have, so the Sub 2000, SU-16, RDB, RFB, all those ones, JR carbine, Chris Vector, very expensive gun, Ruger PC carbine, Norinco T97 NSR, the Type 81, like anything that you can think of that centerfire semi-auto that has a removable magazine will now be prohibited in Canada. Now, I would add to that, we haven't seen the list yet, but we'll probably see it Thursday or whatever, but you can guarantee the SKS is there. I'll guarantee it. Like 99.9% chance it's there because they've been preparing everybody to accept that as a prohibited firearm for how long now? And probably the Benelli M4 too, and probably others. So they'll be, I mean, they got 400 of them, right? In addition to this piece of legislation too. So now here's what's interesting. No mention of a buyback. Okay, so they're going to ban all these guns. No mention of a buyback as well. So actually, Raquel Doncho had asked Talib Nur Muhammad, he's a little dim and a little infantile, as you well know. You've seen that video of him and I having an exchange. But basically, that smarminess, that childishness, that disrespect for Parliament and for the people that are having to live with what he's doing to them, that continued on. So she said, Raquel said, well, you know, is this going to be included in the buyback? And there's nothing apparently there's nothing in their amendments that say that. So he says to her, well, why don't you recommend an amendment and you recommend a buyback? Can you imagine? Like, it's such a farce to these people. Like, these are not good people, right? But anyway, nonetheless, so how is this going to become law? So basically the NDP and the Liberals and the Bloc are all working against all gun owners in Canada. They have the votes to pass this amendment. Once this is done with this part of the process, it's going to go to the Senate. It's going to go through their process, and then it will receive royal assent. They have the votes all the way through the system to do this. So this is as good as done. if there's no election between now and when that gets royal assent. End of story. Okay, that's how that works. So they can absolutely do this. And some people are like, well, why would they? Well, why would they do that now? And because they're not even supposed to make such sweeping amendments, right? It's not. But of course, the chairman of the SECU committee, the chairman of that specific committee, is the one that decides whether this is out of scope or not. And of course, he's a liberal, so he's like, oh yeah, that's totally fine. That's just a minor tweak, literally affecting a couple of million individual firearms and probably up to 1 million Canadian gun owners. It's like, that's just a little tweak. So anyway, that's what we're dealing with there. Now, why now? Well, they saved this to an amendment so that they wouldn't have to endure any scrutiny during the House process, right? From people like me or what have you. Well, I wouldn't even get to mention that, right? It's already too late. So kind of interesting. I think another thing, just to kind of throw it out there, is you look at, I don't want to use any too crazy of language, but it's like Canada's just getting torn to pieces by the Trudeau Liberals. And of course, they are absolutely supported by the NDP, including Alistair McGregor from Vancouver Island, who pretends to bring the concerns of his constituents to the committee and then just votes for all that stuff anyway. It's just like these people, But anyway, and don't forget the Bloc. They're right along for the ride too. They're more than happy to help the Liberals. So you got 1.5 million Canadians standing in lines at food banks just to eat now. You have interference in the 2019 election from China, which apparently CSIS told the government, including Justin Trudeau, all about, and yet he denies that he knows anything about it. Isn't that interesting? It's not the first time he's lying. And the opioid epidemic is on steroids now for some reason. And of course, this week, all these people are appearing for the misuse of the Emergencies Act, previously known as the War Measures Act. So what better idea to change the channel than to pull out another gun ban and get gun owners angry again? So don't let them do it to you, okay? Go on social media. Make sure that you do not let anyone forget how the Liberals and the NDP and the Bloc together, happily with hands held together, cruising along, destroying all kinds of things in Canada. And you know what? They do not care. You are livestock to them. That's a real problem. So don't get distracted. It is a gun ban. We have a plan. There's only so much we can do because we can't change the government, but we can make life very difficult on them, and we can help the Conservatives help us too. So there's a lot we can do, but we can't stop this for now. So anyway, don't take your eyes off the ball. They're trying to distract from these massive failures that are crippling Canada. Don't let them forget it. Get on social media. Talk about all these things that they're doing and how they're laughing at us, because they really are. I've experienced it, and you saw it in the actual House committee. You saw it. They're just laughing at us. So anyway, stay tuned for more. Within the next couple of days, you're going to see a lot more from the CCFR, basically a lot more social media content, and you'll hear about what our plan is to make life even more difficult for these people. We're not going to just lay down and let them do it to us. End of story. It's not an option. Anyway, thanks for your support. Thanks for listening. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.